Hey everybody, welcome. And back by popular demand, we have Toshi here. Toshi and I did an interview a little while back. I was introducing you to him, and a lot of people liked that video. I'm bringing Toshi back because we want to talk about a particular topic today that I think is very relevant to this work, which is, how do we phrase this? Well, we know that awareness or presence is the foundation of our experience, and it's a big part of inquiry, to do inquiry from awareness. We know that, but the question that we're going to deal with here today is, to what extent do we need to point to awareness once we have a really skillful KI practice? Do we need that anymore? But before I get to that, because Toshi is one of our green checkmark trainers and facilitators, so he's very involved in these questions every day as he trains people. But before we get to that, Toshi, when you got to KI, you had already had some sort of recognition of presence. Can you give us a sense of that, and then how or if KI helped with that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Scott. So, yeah, I mean, I have been a seeker pretty much all my life, and then I went to different people do like non-dual teaching, satsang, to retreats and all that stuff, and I did have my experiences, and yes, and I thought I've seen it. I thought I've seen it all, but I didn't know that was a landing, and then but my depression or my pain kept carrying on, it almost got worse. So that's why I came to you. I saw your video. I was like, wow, he's actually talking about it. And all I had to do was to ask. I'll be sitting there with the sensation for hours and days and just trying to just be with it, because I've been taught to allow, just let everything be as they are. It's like, yeah, okay. And I know, I've seen it, I experienced it. Everything's empty, nobody's here, yes. But doesn't feel like it from, where I'm sitting, when I'm in pain, when I'm triggered, right? So, but then, yeah, I didn't know how to even, I could even ask, or, because to me, I've been almost taught unconsciously in non-dual world or whatever spirituality that to ask something is to identify to the sensations. Like, no, that's, no, I'm just going to let everything just as they are. Yeah. But if I inquire, it's like, no, I'm actually like manipulating, or like I'm identified with. So I didn't know that. But obviously, that's what we do here, and that's how powerful it is to bring stuff up, because most of the things are unconscious. I didn't know, so I came to KI with this knowledge, with this understanding about non-duality and all that stuff. And there was a lot of judgment in the beginning about everything was like, is that the identification? Are we really making everything real again, and all that stuff, right? Yeah. But when you start with, so I came here looking for relief from my pain, to be okay, because I never felt okay really. But then when you start unpacking stuff, it's the guy who's sitting to do the inquiry is the suffering, is the guy who's, even the non-dual guy, the non-duality guy, the Toshi. So yeah, so when that starts to fall away, it became I really got to actually embody what those pointings were, because all I could do was to use awareness, understanding, or explain my experiences with non-dual recognition, all that stuff, to soothe myself. However sincere my seeking was, I didn't have a choice, because my depression was active. Every time I wanted to go to retreat or go to satsang or watch YouTube clip or whatever, because I didn't feel good. I never got to see it at the time, but I could really clearly see it now, how subtle it was, and how sincere it was, and how blind I was to everything, because I thought I was really looking for the truth, and I was, and there was part of that, and that carried on. But most part of it is just like I had to be safe, because it didn't feel safe here. So when I start to see that through KI, I could actually see that most of the things I did was through that, really. And I used awareness to push it farther down, which I was really basically quite shocked about in the beginning. And I was against some of the third dimension tools, because it just felt like more identified, because I was trying to do an inquiry from this place called awareness that I made up, that felt safe, which I didn't feel, and it felt true, and it felt vast, it felt empty, but there was a subtle safety that I was using it. And that I didn't spot until I got really into the energy of myself to be with that things that I really didn't want to feel. And then, wow, awareness is here. It's not there or anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's just like, but then I could really trust my experience. And then everything just kind of fell into places. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's how the real kind of embodiment of what I was being taught or be pointed at became my experience. And I can talk from that. Like right now, I can, it's those pointings are true, which I knew was true, but I wasn't using it to push things down. And there's a huge difference with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to keep it in my pocket, the understanding to walk around. It's with me.
No, that's a really good point, though, because I think a lot of people notice that they don't have to keep the understanding because it's more experientially available when you're getting to those areas that you're trying to avoid through the pointing. I don't know if that's very clear, but that's the whole topic of this interview is, well, part of it is to what extent are we bearing certain suffering from the pointing? Before I get to that, because we're going to get to that, I want to ask you about something that you brought up. It came up in a meeting this morning that somebody said, when you're sitting with in a first dimension or even with a non-dual teacher, you might hear things like, see that anger is arising, but that you're not it, or that anger is there, but it's not you. Now, from a non-dual, from the awareness standpoint, that could be helpful in that moment. But tell me what that did for you. I have no idea what you're going to say here, but I have a sense of it.
So what did that for me is further push away, because so we have to come back a little bit where what I'm finding right now through working with many people on repressions. Repression is pretty much there most of the times, and repression is active most of the times. That means we don't feel safe, however subtle it is. So we have to, there's a need for safety, like a grabbing of to be safe all the time. So however the pointing is, and then yes, from my point of view, anger is not me. If you could say that, it feels true, because there is no one called Toshi that is anger that is coming out or anything. But all I could do is that to use that knowledge to further push down or use it for my agenda that I have, which is safety. I don't want to feel this anger. So I need anything I see in life, what can I use to further push down my, anger? So yes, if I'm not triggered, I can hear it. And then, yeah, definitely that pointing is, I experience it. But most of the time I was triggered. So all I could do was to, yeah, okay. And then that will make me feel good if I believe that, or if I believe it, because it soothes me. It pushes down, like, whenever I feel good, I find out now that I actually managed to push down things that I didn't want to feel. So it felt good to be in awareness. It's good, in this place that I made up, even through awakening experience or whatever. That's how subtle it is in my experience and the many people I work with. So yeah, and anger just arises, but then that's just such a one of the best way to avoid your emotions that you don't want to feel. And that's why non-duality is so maybe appeal to me so much, because it ticked a massive box of to say, as long as I'm being nice, understanding, all this stuff that I did all my life to push my anger, that people pleasing, be nice, it's okay, you can walk all over me, but I don't have boundaries, all that things go there. And there's nobody here, there's nothing to do. It's like best thing, I don't have to feel anything, it's not me. And that ticked off. So that's why I feel, I just used it, I just grabbed it, and then made my choice, and it felt really good to do that, even though with the experience. And this is the thing, because all I could do was to grab the experience and keep it in my pocket to prove or whatever it is I needed to do, when I'm really sorry for what it is, but so.
So what would you say to people who say, well, if I say anger is arising, aren't I allowing it fully then? If it's repressed, especially if it's like buried anger, and I know there's anger, I'm storing it, and somebody says, the anger's not you, allow it. Do you tell me about your experience with that in terms of allowing anger?
To be honest, I didn't know what anger was, to be honest. For now, I thought anger was about like being grumpy and being shut down. That's all I was coming up for me. I just get really grumpy or I just shut down. Yeah. And then you lost your temper, I didn't. It was like that game that, so I held down. I get upset instead. I might start crying. I get really upset instead because I had to push it down. It was just not safe to feel anger. That's how I grew up. And loads of traumas and bullies on top of that were just not in my vocabulary. So to say, yes, I feel angry, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I was the last one to know what that felt like. So right. I don't know if I'm answering you correctly, but I don't know. It's just feel like, yeah. And yeah, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, did the anger actually come up and be made conscious and transmute that way? Because my issue with that pointer is
Hmm.
that it pretends like the anger is just by itself down here in the body, as if the mind isn't involved. And we know now that the mind is stuffing it down constantly.
Yeah.
So when they say anger is happening to no one, it's almost like it disengaged that whole part of it. Like it just buried the
Okay.
anger more. Because what I needed to do was to see that I am angry and bring that thought in there
Yeah.
instead of
Okay, I know
burying
what
it.
you're saying now. Yeah. Exactly. Because I could just, I think I'm allowing the anger, but I'm just repressing the thoughts about the anger. So my mind and body was not connected. So that means, yes, whatever this is, I could call it anger, but I'm feeling it, but I'm not really feeling it because I'm pushing the thought I'm angry down, and that's safe. But to really feel angry, your mind and body have to be connected, which means you have to see the thought, I am angry, I'm fucking angry. And then when that's connected, you can really feel it. And it's not, but
And
you
then
can
you're
really
allowing.
bypass it in that way. You can be, I'm angry. But you could do it other way. Like you can see the thoughts, I'm angry, but you don't feel anyway because I had to cut my body off in that way too. I think, I can allow the thought I'm angry, but I could be pushing down and your mind and body is still not connected. So how can you allow, something when you're not fully seeing it? And then I said I'm angry, but all you're doing is might be seeing the thought I'm angry, but you're not really feeling it or something like that too. That did happen to me as well. So yeah, it is about the mind and body connection. And you get to really see for what it really is. That's what really transmuted in my experience. Because how can I just transmute anger, what is just feeling it, when you're missing the thoughts or the mind part of the anger or because it can't, you're missing half of it. But when you actually see the thoughts about it and the sensation with it, then you really see it as a thoughts and a sensation mixed together or something. It can be allowed for what it really is in my experience. So that's how then you can actually feel anger. But you have to go there. You can't, it can't just be this thing. Yeah.
And some people are concerned about identifying, but let's talk about that first. They sit there and go, like you said, I'm concerned that I'll identify with it if I bring the thought in. And you even had that concern that what I was talking about would lead to re-identification. How did that work itself out for you, where you saw that that's not what I'm doing?
Yeah, I kind of touched on a little bit. So we have this tool called rapid firing where we kind of fire the thoughts really. And to me, that felt like identification, like I'm angry. It's like, it's just like too much. Every time I do it, something was pulling me back to say, no, do it from awareness. That kind of like a pullback or like to kind of not to fully, because your body knows you don't want to go there. It's, it's really a scary thing to do. So, what was your question again?
Well, how did you get past that hump of?
Oh yeah, the identifying. Sorry. Yeah, identification. So, and then I see those thoughts kind of like, oh, you're identifying and all those things, and then and like it feels like it's true, but we used to call it like identify without identifying. It's we can consciously identify, meaning, okay, this is a hard. You have to go where the rubber meets the road to actually to bring up things, right? Where we just the conversation before, where you can just be with the sensation of the anger and miss the whole mind part, and then that's the avoidance. But to do that, you're up against the program that wants to do that. So in order to go against that program that wants to feel safe by pushing the thoughts down or even the sensation down, we have to go and meet it where it started, where it's at. Which is where the body is, which is where the human is, where so, and you could never meet it from that position of this like observing place, because that's just, you're not fully being. It's hard to explain, but you could call it identification, but I forgot I used to even call it. This is a conversation we used to always have this when we start developing the tools, but it's you could say you're identifying, but you're being the energy of the anger. You're fully there, but really consciously, like not, because my anger, I used to have commands like be nice, to push the anger down, like push it down. All that was happening unconsciously. That means I fully believed it. Like, if I believed in identify something, that means I'm unconscious. As soon as I'm identified, I'm conscious. I can't see it as thoughts. I can't see it as sensations. It just feels true, right? But we can do this consciously identify and consciously fire it. That be nice. Then that's how we make it conscious. Because still, the name of the game is to make unconscious things that's run your lives blindly conscious. We're not going to make any of those things enemy or right or wrong. We just need to see it for what it is, which is thoughts, sensation, images, and all that stuff that's here. But to get there, we have to step forward, or that feeling. You just have to come to it and trust the body and be with the body. I guess it's really energetic. It's very real somatic energetic work, basically. And energy and that feeling is what I didn't want to feel. So I'll come up with anything to say, oh, you're identifying, or this is too much, this energy is too much, I can't go into it. So there was a little barrier before I could really go into being that. But again, awareness is everywhere. There's no bypass. There's no space for that mind to come in when you're fully, fully with that thing, because you're being authentic. And that's what, I won't talk about the skill of the tools, but the reason, we're up against the mind. So the less the mind interaction, the better it is for us. So that's why rapid firing is so skillful, because we just shut off the gap. We decrease the gap for the mind to be able to come in to say, oh, you're identifying, this is not working, this energy is too much, I'm panicking. This is, all that stuff. We can just see it, but we can stay on the inquiry, if that makes sense. It's a bit kind of technical, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up that the source of the suffering, we're getting to the root of suffering is what we're doing. If you, but nobody wants to do that. I mean, we don't want to do that because that's really unsafe. That's the very thing that we've been avoiding. So let's say somebody comes up to you and they say, Toshi, let's say the person doesn't know that they repress emotion, and they say, I want to recognize this awareness that you're talking about, but I don't recognize that I have repression. What would you say to me? I want to go get involved in pointing to awareness. I don't know that I have repression. What would you say?
That's a good question, actually. So I'll probably do the normal things as what normal non-dual teacher would say, to just point to, what's noticing this, you just came here, do you notice that you're, talking, or do you notice the space, or all those stuff, like the pointing, you can do the who am I stuff and stuff like that. But I will also add to that, do you know why you might be asking the question? Or, is there any reason, is there any agenda that you might want to know that? Because, most of us who goes who's seeking is trying to get away from something. So I will definitely move the conversation towards back into him or her to say, is there anything you're feeling that you might not want to feel? Because that's where the seeking or the need to know what awareness is when it's still here, right? So I will still point there, but I have to include that conversation, because it's gonna feel everything I'm gonna say. If he's triggered and if he's repressed, repression's asking the question, repression's listening to me, and I know that. So everything I say, there's an agenda. So he or she's gonna grab that and say, okay, oh, there's nobody here, I can use that to push it down. Right. So yeah. So we have to include that. And that's the conversation we're having now. Yes, we can point to it, but we have to include it, while we're asking the question, but can we actually hear it? If the repression is active and we seek in safety, can we actually hear the pointing? I couldn't. I thought I did, and it felt good, but it feels good because we managed to push it down, not because it's true or not anything else. And no, true feels good. No, because I managed to push it down. Maybe. So I want to kind of keep saying that, because so many people get really ill, really stuck, and some teachers repress themselves. So whatever they say is really attractive to the repressed people who goes to that satsang. Because repression's hearing what he wants to hear from a repressed teacher. So do you see what I mean? And it just takes all the, okay, wow. And then, and then what they say is, this is how you repress your anger. I said, oh, okay, thank you. That's what's happening in satsang sometimes. I'm not saying all teachers, but it can look like that, right? So So it has to be included in a conversation where the inside out path you're talking about, it has to be an experience from inside. It can't be an outside in. I can't take in, I don't want that person who's asking me that question, oh, this is what Toshi said about non-duality and awareness. I'm going to outside in, I'm going to take it, and then I'm going to believe it. But you can't believe it if you haven't experienced it. It's just something else. And I don't want to give awareness license to bypass, because making into this really special thing, it may be within even KI as well. And there's nothing wrong with that, is my experience. But there's still a resource. It's still something to cope with for people who's repressing. So we don't want to treat any special, anything other than a resource, to a coping mechanism. That could be meditation, getting high, watching Netflix. We should treat it as that if you have to. That's how I treat it, because if you give it anything special, then people think, oh, it's okay because it's awareness or something, right? Do you see where the mind can comes in and start grabbing that and then really land on that? And people will be stuck within the community as well. Really people might really push that awareness stuff, and that's okay. But, is it really helpful? Is it really, really helpful to do that, especially in KI? That's the question that I've been asking myself, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here's my last question. It's similar to that one, because you're right that repression would be drawn to the practice or the teaching that provides the safety, and the awareness pointing, because it often doesn't get to the repression, ends up being safe to the nervous system. Although none of that is said explicitly. Nobody says that, but it's all undercurrent of programming. So people are going to be drawn to those pointings that point to awareness, especially if it points you away from having to feel something. So let's say I come to you and I say, I hear everything that you and Scott are saying. I am not going to be going to anger or hurt. I'm just going to go and sit with Eckhart. I'm going to sit with Scott's old videos where he just pointed to awareness. Toshi, isn't that enough? I don't need to do trauma and repression work. I'm going to be fully liberated and healed this way. You don't know the answer to that ultimately, but what would you say to the person? Would you say anything?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I say first, of course, if I have, not going to, but if you're suffering and do you have pain, or if you're suffering, then, there's a way out. That's, there's a way to actually see that what you might not be conscious of, because I might have said the same thing, or I would have said the same thing. There's nothing to do. Just let everything be as they are. Well, but it's such a good hiding place. And then, if I can maybe point to that, but maybe I don't need to do that. I don't want to reinforce my beliefs or my experience onto anybody. But if they come here, say, Toshi, I'm actually really suffering. I've got chronic pain. It's really hurting. Or I just feel really down. I don't really want to be here. Then we can look at it. But some people are maybe okay just be, I don't know, to be in awareness. And I don't know, because I had to go through that to really see that too, right? To kind of bypass, or I'm not saying that person's bypassing, but I don't know, because I'm not trying to deny any of the pointings at all. And these people might get it wrong, because I'll be the last one to put non-duality down, even myself, because it is my experience. All the pointings makes much, much more sense than ever. Wow, this is what he or she was saying, but not a knowledge. It's an experience. I'm moving with it. So it's true. There's nothing you could say, it's nothing, there's nothing really to do here. Really, there's nobody here. And apparently there's no one talking. Yes, there's truth to that. But is that really helpful? Is that really helpful in what we do? That's all I'm saying, really. And because we can only hear that as something that we can use. But if you can really feel that and be with that pointing, then of course, there's no waste time. They just be. And, and if you can allow all the emotions come and go, if you can be really angry, you can be really scared, you can be really happy, then because all of it is included. But if you had to push something down, if you have say, oh, it's okay to be nice, but maybe not so angry, or whatever it is, then maybe there's something to look there, maybe. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, that's good. And I would also say, let's see, what I want to leave this conversation with is, so repression work isn't for everybody. However, I think it answers the question in terms of, I think the question is, are you still suffering? You said that. It's like, who cares if I say, well, I've had awareness recognition, or that experience, or that shift? None of that really matters if I'm still suffering. So if they're still suffering, that's where I think you'd be drawn to this work, because there might be some suffering that didn't get reached by. That's what I was thinking by the pointing. So if that's you out there, if are you still suffering? And that's a great question, because what good is any of this if it doesn't get to the suffering? Why are we doing it? I don't know why we're doing it if we're not doing it for suffering. So anyway, if they're still suffering, we have a way. If you want to reach with Toshi or work with Toshi, tell everybody the ways that you're working with people, your training sessions, what else?
Yeah, I'm doing training sessions and yeah, everything else between and some meetings and stuff like that really. But I just wanted to share some, you said something there that was really good, that just something was coming up, the suffering. Yeah, and we don't even know we're suffering as well. So, that's the bit, because we had to tell ourselves, suffering to survive and stuff like that. And it gets, because yes, I knew I was suffering to a point, but it's just, yeah, it's like we are choosing this, like we are choosing suffering to feel safe and stuff like that. I guess we can talk about it now, because that's a big things. We're not just suffering because the world is bad or this is what happened.
Yeah.
We are choosing to suffer so we don't have to feel this. And that's a whole kind of worm, but it's, and to see that, it changes everything. And that was a big turning point for me, because I thought I was suffering because whatever happened to me. And it's like, yeah, that I was bearing the consequence. But when I created, so I was addicted to suffering. I had to suffer to get rid of the suffering. All these innocent programs that I was running from my childhood. We're the last one to know what's really happening in ourselves. We never upset for the reasons we think, what the Course in Miracles say or whatever. So yeah, I leave it. Yeah, that came up. So yeah, I leave it with that really. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. If you guys want to work with Toshi, you can go to Kilby.com. You'll see him book a session. You'll see him come up, or the training page. You're offering training right now. You're one of our new trainers. You're taking people right now into training.
Yeah, I'm doing that show. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for being with me, Toshi, as
Thank
always.
you. Yeah. Take care. Bye.